Hi there, welcome to This Ohio Farmhouse. Today we're going to talk about what you might need if everything were to shut down and you can't get any medical care. So 3 areas that we're going to talk about are our essential oils that we use, the supplements that we use, and homeopathy, which actually is something that we just started looking into. So when I started prepping all of this, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't forgetting anything, or at least do my best effort at trying to do that. And so I sat down and I made a list of all of the possible ailments or things that we could encounter, especially being out on the homestead. We have all kinds of weird rashes and bug bites and all kinds of interesting things that we encounter. And so I wanted to make sure that I had as many tools in our medicine cabinet as possible to try to tackle all of those things.
And we may forget something. So we do, have a few things on our list that we do probably need to get into our cabinets.
We do. So one of the things that I really wanted to make sure I had in my own cabinet was things to deal with stings. We do have bees on our property, and while most of us haven't been reacting, Ben, my husband, recently, the past couple of times that he has gotten stung, it has swollen up really to an uncomfortable level for him, and I wanted to be able to start treating this. And so homeopathy was the perfect way to tackle that.
I got stung just yesterday, and I haven't been stung forever, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't really have anything. And my boys have never been stung, knock on wood. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had something here, and we do. We have something for swelling and bee stings.
So homeopathy is they're little pellets, and you put them in under your tongue, and the purpose of it is to kind of stimulate your immune response so that your body starts treating. So it's kind of the philosophy of like treats like. So if you were to get stung by something, you're going to put apis into your body, and it actually keeps your body from swelling and reacting, because your body more quickly knows how to react and have an immune response that is helpful to you rather than just kind of blowing up. So I made this whole list, and I wanted things on there like tick bites and rashes and fevers and colds and chest colds, like nasty coughs.
Sore throats.
Yes, all of those things. I just made this really hefty list, and I started getting down to the gritty and just trying to figure out which ones I needed to treat which ailments. And so I started my collection. There's still several things that I want to get, but obviously it costs lots of money to just jump full force into this.
Well, and if you are on a budget, you might just want to every month add a few things to, your list. But I don't know if any of you have seen this like at the grocery store, but like Kroger sells this. This is probably the first experience I've had with any of the homeopathy. So I can't say it. Do you know how to say it?
Oscillococcanum.
Yeah, I say Osceola when I talk about it, which is not exactly how
that's not how you say it.
Notice.
Oscillococcanum.
Yes.
But this was one of the very first things that we tried. It was recommended to us, and we honestly thought it comes in these little vials, which I'll show you.
And we took it for the flu. If you were around somebody and you were starting to get symptoms, you got to catch it right away. But it almost seems like this wouldn't work whatsoever, because it tastes like sugar pills.
It does. I honestly thought that you were supposed to take this entire thing the first time that we got it.
That's what we did, until she said no.
Really? Yeah. And so you really only need a couple of these pellets, and I tell you, they are almost, they're like microscopic little tiny, tiny pellets. And so you just put them under your tongue, but that's all that it takes to stimulate your immune response. So these we know worked, and so we used those several times for, I would say, a handful of years. We've been using this and knew that it was effective, so it kind of started us down this path of homeopathy. So actually, before I jumped into homeopathy, I joined a couple of Facebook groups so that I could just start kind of listening to the conversation of how they treat things and what they do and how effective or ineffective it is. And I really wanted to just kind of sit back and listen for a while. So I did that, and I listened to a couple of really great podcasts that explained homeopathy really well and how they're made and how they work and all of those things. And I thought it was insanely, I mean, I was like blown away by this information. I find it super intriguing. So we jumped in.
Yeah, I honestly did, other than this for the flu, I just happened to see at the natural health store the little vials that they had there. And one of them, my boys were having a lot of motion sickness with our new car. And so I gave them 5 of these, which now I'm finding out you don't have to necessarily give them 5, which is on what the bottle recommends. But it has taken care of any motion sickness and dizziness that they've had in the car.
I actually started using them. I think we've had this collection for just several weeks now. But I was starting to get a stuffy nose, my nose was running, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a really long day of homeschooling. I just felt pretty terrible. I took 1 pellet. I was listening to a homeopath talk, and she said the bottle will tell you that you need 4 or 5. You really only need 1 to stimulate. And so I was like, I'm just gonna try this. I popped 1 of those little pellets in my mouth, and within 5 minutes my nose stopped running. I wasn't stuffy anymore, and I felt great to continue the day. And it lasted all day. It didn't ever come back. I thought for sure, like, okay, 15 minutes from now I'm gonna be doing this again, but it stayed clear all day. I was impressed.
Now, I did take something, I don't remember the name of it because they have really wacky names to remember, but I took something for allergies that did not work. But I'm coming to find out that you have to have the exact symptoms plugged in to an app that actually we have.
Right.
It has to be the exact symptoms or it doesn't work for that
It goes
issue.
into pretty detailed information. It'll ask you, like, okay, I have a cold, but along with that cold, what are your symptoms? Do you have a fever? Do you have chills? Do you have fatigue? It asks you a series of questions, and based on all of your responses to that, it narrows it down to the very specific homeopathic treatment that you need. So the one that might deal with like a cold with fatigue is different than the one that is cold with a stuffy nose
and a fever.
Right.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering if mine is more hay fever. So I might
you're
need
still
one
trying
more
to figure yours
specific.
out.
Yeah.
A couple other things that I have kept on hand for quite some time are these 2 things. This is calendula and arnica, and both of these are homeopathic medicines. This one I use particularly for sunburns and burns, skin issues. Arnica is more like a first aid treatment. This is gonna keep you from bruising. It's gonna help cuts and things heal much faster. So anyway, those are really awesome things to keep on hand. Okay, something else that I have dealt with is poison ivy, and I have, from the time I was really little, had a horrible experience with poison ivy, but just the past few times it has spread internally, and that is just absolutely miserable. So I actually went to our chiropractor, and he does a treatment that reverses allergies. And I honestly would have thought it was complete garbage, except that I have several friends that have gone through it and swear by it. And they said, this was absolutely incredible. So I did it, and I had him reverse a handful of allergies that I have, which now I'm super grateful for, because if things do happen to go crazy, the last thing you want to deal with is allergies and things that you have issues with. So I am allergic highly to all kinds of preservatives. I'm, oh my gosh, so sick if I get soy in my system and poison ivy. And so I had him reverse all of those. Now, obviously, I'm still gonna avoid them because I'm not 100% confident. But I've now gotten poison ivy probably 3 times just this summer, and it hasn't spread.
Since you had the treatment.
Since I had the treatment.
So she got a little bit of it, but it would have totally spread if you hadn't.
Oh, it would. It's gone. Once it goes internal, it's kind of like guaranteed that it's going to go internal every time. It just, it's your body's response to it at that point. So I was really happy that it didn't do that. A couple of things that I got to keep on hand is this is a jewelweed salve, and jewelweed is known to both clear up poison ivy, help it dry out much more quickly, and reduce the itch. And then there's also a homeopathy treatment that is for poison ivy and poison oak.
I found that I had that and forgot that I had bought it. For poison ivy, poison
there
oak.
You go.
I'm like, oh yay, I bought that. So oils are something we've been using for quite a while now. And so we use them for just about anything and everything, from, like we talked about, allergies, to pain, inflammation, what else? Sore throats, headaches,
cuts and burns, and
anything, honestly.
Pretty much anything under the sun can be treated with an essential oil. Is it going to completely get rid of it? It may or may not. There are certain ones that I absolutely swear by. But I actually have had thyroid issues in the past, and so I have a blend that I use directly on my thyroid, and I know that that helps. For a time, kind of coming along with my thyroid issues, I was having kind of like a racing, pounding heart, and ylang ylang is an essential oil that will calm my heart down right away. So our staple probably oil for me and probably for you is lavender, and you know that helps with any kind of scarring, you know, any kind of healing for scrapes and burns,
cuts and burns.
If you have kids, you need to have lavender.
Yeah, Hudson just recently got burned helping the first time with cooking, so we've been putting a lot of lavender on. If you're starting to get sick, we use On Guard, which is similar to thieves oil. It's a blend. There's several things in here. I put it on the bottom of my kids' feet. You can put it up their spine. If they're getting a fever, peppermint is good up and down the spine.
Yeah, that was my first experience with essential oils. We put peppermint down one of my kids' spines, and the temperature, I think, went from like 104 to 100 degrees in like a couple of minutes time. I mean, it was very quick in responding. So one of the best ways to treat with essential oils is down the spine, because that is where viruses attack. And so the reason that you can't use an antibiotic when you get a virus is because it doesn't penetrate the cell. We don't have the technology available to be able to actually penetrate the cell and fight off a virus. So that's why when you go to the doctor and you have a virus, they say, sorry, you just have to wait it out. With an essential oil, it actually will penetrate that cell and start fighting it for you. So putting it down the spine is probably one of the most effective ways. It actually gets into your bloodstream really quickly by putting
30 seconds, I think.
Right, by putting it on the bottom of your feet as well. So those are kind of the two most effective places.
And also, oils cross the blood-brain barrier, so that's why they're also much more effective. Again, getting into your bloodstream a lot quicker. Clary sage is really good for hormones. Serenity, if you have anxiety, experience panic attacks, anxiety,
don't sleep well.
Yeah. Really good for sleeping, so you can diffuse it in your diffuser. Also, we diffuse all the time. Breathe in our diffusers through through the whole night if our kids aren't able to breathe.
Digestin is another must in my mind.
This is, besides lavender, Digestin is probably my favorite. I mean, the minute you have any nausea or stomach pain, boom, this stuff works quickly.
It does, and the kids ask for it. If they have an upset tummy, they're like, can I please have the oil?
And you just rub it around their belly button, or you put it around their belly button. You offered, was it peppermint or Digestin when we were on the airplane and we had motion sickness?
Oh yeah, there was this sweet little girl. We had the worst airplane ride in the world.
I haven't flown forever, and it's like, oh, the stewardess was like, this was the worst.
I mean, it was a very bumpy ride, to say the least. And this poor little girl next to us, she was so sick. She's just throwing up, and I felt horrible for her. So I actually had peppermint in my bag and I handed it to her. I'm like, just breathe this in, rub a little bit on your hands and just breathe in the smell. And it did calm her stomach enough that she made it through the rest of the flight.
And we asked Mom for permission first.
Yeah, I did. I asked the mom.
So you're like, what are you putting on my child?
Right. Now, obviously, we have quite the collection of essential oils. They're kind of costly, to be quite honest, but we have collected these over the course of like 10 years and then just replaced them as we run out. But I will say that per treatment, it's a really inexpensive way to go. Each bottle that's like 15 mils is 250 drops, I believe, and you only need one drop to treat. So that's 250 times that you can treat an ailment with an essential oil. So really, even for one of the more expensive bottles, it's totally worth it.
And you want an oil, you don't want to just go to the grocery store and get any oil. So there's fillers in them, it's not as potent, it's not as pure, it has to be in the area that it grows the best, and it has to be sourced at just the right time in order for it to have the potency. And now there are a couple other oil companies that we would use as well that aren't as expensive as, say, doTERRA, and some of you have used Young Living, they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're considered pure. They have passed third-party testing. There aren't very many companies that have passed the third-party testing, which is one of the reasons that we chose doTERRA, because it has. But there are a couple others. I will just say that they are not as potent. In my experience, for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years prior to making the switch to doTERRA, we were using a couple of others, and my husband could not ever smell them if we diffused them in the house. It didn't matter how much I put in the diffuser, there was no smell.
Yeah, so
as
like
soon as we made the switch, he could smell it.
You put one drop of this, and it just goes a lot further than, say,
it does.
brand.
And the reason for that is because they harvest these at their peak. So if you know anything about growing plants, you want to harvest at the prime time. You don't want to pick it when it's still not ripe, and you don't want to wait too long. So they pick at its prime and they harvest within a certain number of hours to distill and get those oils out. Which is why these are a little bit more potent. A lot of the other companies actually purchase their oils from a marketplace or just the plants themselves, and then they distill them. So at that point they could be a couple of weeks old. So just like if you were to pick something out of your garden, after a couple of weeks it's not going to be nearly as good.
So our third category that we're talking about here today would be our supplements, and these are our must-haves. So some of our must-haves would be the D3K2. The K2 with your vitamin D is going to help you absorb the vitamin better. Silver is also another staple. You can put this under your tongue. It's a drop. If you're sick, you're not feeling well. It can be used for other things too.
I use it for treating like an ear infection.
Ears.
If you feel like you're getting sick, it is good for bacteria, for viruses, for all kinds of stuff. If you have like a wound of any kind, you can actually put it on the wound. It's going to help your skin heal and keep out any kind of infection for that as well. This Sovereign Silver I also use on our farm animals when we need it. So if they have any kind of weird funky thing going on, I'll use colloidal silver on them.
You can nebulize it, right?
Yes.
I have not nebulized it, but that will happen if we
Right.
get
So if you feel upper respiratory stuff coming on, or if you're fearful that it could turn to pneumonia or anything like that, a good thing to have on hand is a nebulizer. You can use the colloidal silver, you can use a food grade hydrogen peroxide, and also like vitamin C crystals. You can dilute those and put them into the nebulizer and breathe them directly into your lungs, and it is gonna knock stuff out very quickly. So those are things that I like to have on hand. These vitamin C, this is like a powder, which I can show you. It just like comes out in a really fine powder, but that I can fill capsules with and take it orally, or like I can mix it into drink. Now I will say it's kind of sour, so my kids don't necessarily love that, but there are some kid blends for vitamin C that are like flavored, and they don't mind those at all.
Jenna has a daughter who has some major eye issues. She's got dry eyes, stuff for her, drops, something to have on hand.
So she actually had an eye injury a few years back, and we've had, I don't know, probably over 50 eye appointments in that amount of time. We are regularly at the eye specialist, and she is working along with the chiropractor to support her eye. So I guess my advice for that is to think through if you have any ailments or specific things that you don't want to be without the things that help you. For her, she takes oculotropin through standard process, and then she also takes iPlex, which I don't think I brought out here. But I am going to make sure that I have extra of that on hand so that she is able to support her system and what she needs. Now, some of you have heard me say that I have very, very tough pregnancies. This last one was the first that I felt like I semi-survived, and I attribute that in great detail to a chiropractor that worked alongside with me to cleanse my body of glyphosate. When I was tested for that, I had really accelerated levels, and it was because we moved out to the country and we're surrounded by fields, and they're sprayed all summer, and now they're getting ready to spray in the fall again. And that glyphosate just causes your body to attack itself. And so my daughter with the eye issue, I have a son that had really high elevated levels as well, and then I did too. A couple of my family members have processed it much better, but we really struggled. And so in order to cleanse our body, we used standard process SP green food. And this is really just whole green foods that are going to help pump out anything that's not supposed to be in your body. And I was able to do this even when I was pregnant, which was awesome, because you can't typically do any kind of a cleanse because it brings out bad stuff and it can get into the baby or into your milk supply when you're nursing. But this was totally safe to do.
Our chiropractor basically said just stay on that in the fall and in the spring, whenever
anytime that we see spraying, we're supposed to, the whole family is supposed to be on this to make sure that we don't have any weirdness coming from it. We have friends that, it's just interesting because it attacked all of us in a different way. So mine was through my thyroid. My daughter's was her eye. I mean, she literally, when he tested her eye, it was attacking just her one eye.
Our friend's little boy lost all of his hair.
He did. He had really severe alopecia. So your glyphosate is just a toxic, nasty substance. And so this is what we use. So I have several bottles of this already in my cabinet, and I probably will get more just to make sure.
And even if you live in the city or in town, I mean, this stuff just,
it's in the air.
It's just in the air. So
it is. So, all right, you want to talk about Congoplex? We have used this for a long time as well.
Yes. Recently, I had not been feeling very well. I took Congoplex, which is also standard processing vitamin. My mom swears by it. I mean, she's like, are you taking your Congoplex and are you drinking water? That is something you gotta have if you're not feeling well. So Imuplex is also one that I take kind of preventatively. Congoplex, if I'm hitting it hard, trying to get well quicker. I'm pretty sure I would have stayed sicker longer if I hadn't been taking this, along with some other stuff that the chiropractor had given me, and another guy through a natural healthcare place had given me also to get rid of what was going on.
Right.
I wouldn't be without it.
Another thing, activated charcoal. This is super cheap. You can pick this up in the grocery store. This, anytime that you're getting a stomach bug, if you get food poisoning, anything that deals with your stomach, it actually causes whatever the bad substance is in your body to cling to it and pull it out of your system. This is what they actually give to people who overdose on drugs in the hospital. It's really, really effective. So that's a really cheap and ineffective thing.
I do not have that, and I need to get it on my list.
Yes.
I haven't used it.
Okay, another thing, I grabbed this, just something to consider if you are nursing a baby, sunflower lecithin. This will keep you from getting mastitis. You don't want to have anything like that if you can't get to the doctor. So keep a couple of things on hand depending on what you are dealing with and where you're at in your life. And then some just supply type things. We really stocked up on Band-Aids and gauze and all kinds of, like I have witch hazel because I use this to mix with essential oils.
We need a suture kit too, though.
Yes, that's on our list to get. We're going to get a suture kit, so hopefully I don't ever have to use that. But there's a video that comes along with it that will actually teach you how to use it. So I plan to watch that so that if I need to do it, you know, hopefully we can just go to the doctor when we need to. But there is the potential that for whatever reason we might not be able to get there. So we're trying to prepare in case that were to ever happen. So I feel like we have a pretty good handle on it, but I'm still racking my brain trying to think through if we missed anything, or, you know, what do I do? Right now my thing is like, what if a kid breaks a bone? I know that there is some
cavity.
Right, actually, I do have. So all of these that have a number on them, like this is number 4, number 7, number 10. These are considered cell salts. And so those are actually minerals that you put into your system. And the ones that I have are specific to cavities because I have a son who I said had issues with the glyphosate in his system. And the thing that was attacked on him was his saliva gland, which caused him in 6 months' time from when we went to the dentist. He had one little cavity that was just starting in a baby tooth. And the dentist said I wouldn't worry about it because it's gonna come out anyways. So let's just leave it go. And 6 months later, he had 38 cavities. And so we knew this is not just a, wow, you didn't brush your teeth or you ate too much sugar thing. We knew it had to be a deeper internal thing. And so we started treating that with cell salts and a whole bunch of other things, but we had to get the glyphosate out and get his saliva gland working, which we did. So it has halted all of that as well. Hopefully we have a good handle. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out and ask. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have to the best of my ability.
And we don't claim that any of this is, you know,
the end all answer all, but this is kind of our preventative. How do we tackle this the best we can if we don't have the opportunity to go to the doctor when we need it? I will say that when I started implementing these things, I have avoided the doctor, mostly because I've been able to treat it. So I actually haven't taken, knock on wood, haven't taken any of my kids to a traditional doctor appointment in 9 years.
I can't say that. When I've had earaches, I've tried everything with the earache. I mean, your kid's screaming in pain.
Yeah, you did that for long enough. And
I did that for long enough, so we did go to the doctor.
There are times, but so far we have had a couple of urgent care visits.
We have
had that.
But now that, like, one of my sons had to take, you know, an antibiotic for the earache, now I have to go after his gut biome and really, really increase the probiotics to help with that, you know. With the issue with the gut now that is caused by the antibiotic. So we wish you best of luck, and we will catch you next week on This Ohio Farmhouse.